Aye. Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling. I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly. It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello everyone, this is Brian Courtney with Short Bus Debate Club. And as always, my co-host Darren Jolly is here with me.
Hi.
We are going to talk about indictments some more. This time in, media and entertainment to go along with the semi-standard format.
Semi-standard.
Well, because I don't know if we can say we've standardized on that format yet because we've only been doing it for a few months, but it is mostly standard. Anyway, the movies where presidents were indicted were not the easiest movies to find, view, or remember.
You did a better job than I did with regards to this one. You found some stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have some shit to talk about, and I thought of some more today because I figured the four that I had come up with were probably not nearly enough. So, again, I never know how to put these things together or what to start with, so I'll just kick it over to you and you can start talking if you want.
No. You have some good semi-standard options for this one, dude.
You know what, though? Now you just reminded me of something. So this doesn't have shit to do with the indictment. I just wanted to clarify something for everyone. So a few episodes ago, we were talking about countries in Africa mutilating female genitalia. There are 4 different categories, according to the World Health Organization, where female genitals are mutilated. 200 million girls, women, have already been affected by this, and I think it's like 3 million per year. But yes, they do the removal of the clitoris. They do sew them closed.
Which is what I was wrong on. I didn't believe that, but oh my God.
There's some piercing, some cauterizing, and some other nasty shit that they do. So, and none of this is based on religion or anything else. It's just a way for men to take away some of women's power, as far as I'm concerned. Well, that's all it is.
Anytime you use the word cauterize in the context of genital mutilation, you need to get a hold of some of those guys. And what did Marcellus Wallace say? We're gonna take you down to the boys and get a pair of blowtorch, or get a blowtorch and a pair of pliers and put them to work.
Yeah.
Think that. So my darkness, which comes out occasionally in this show, it's only for spaces of justice where you really don't have any way of negotiating it. So I think, and I was totally wrong with regards to the way that I had originally responded to you, and that's a tough read when you read the stuff that was in that section on the World Health Organization's website.
It was not any fun at all. And just also to clarify, it's not just in Africa. Not that either Darren or I said that, but it's 30 countries throughout Africa, the Middle East, and Asia that are practicing this activity, if you want to call it an activity. So just a heads up, so next time we're fucking going to war with somebody, make sure that you realize we're not doing it to protect the women or free them from bondage. All right, now on that fucking happy note,
if you weren't feeling good before that, and I think it'd be good to the fourth indictment came out. It's out of Georgia. There are somewhere nearly 20 people that are indicted in it. It was 84 pages long. I haven't read it yet. Yeah, so the indictments carry on.
Okay, yeah, and we'll keep you posted on what happens or doesn't happen, which is kind of where I'm leaning.
Which probably you won't need us to do because it's all over every fucking media outlet on the fucking planet right now.
Indeed, it is everywhere. Okay, so I don't know. I guess I'll start with one because I kind of mentioned Reagan when we were talking about the Cheeto in the last one. And, you know, when we were talking about the Iran-Contra affair, I said, you know, now people are saying that Reagan knew. And I know I've seen it somewhere else, but HBO did a, whatever the fuck they call it, a limited series called The Invisible Pilot. And it was about one of those pilots that they hired to move coke. And he said in the show that Ronald Reagan knew about it. So obviously it's too late to indict Reagan. But you know, if he's selling coke and guns, or he's selling coke to buy guns to help the military-industrial complex, regardless of the reasoning, you know, national security was probably one of the ways that they listed it. Regional stability might be another way to justify it. But, you know, he's doing shit that other people would spend, you know, 25 years in prison for, and he gets a pass because he had plausible deniability, or he was the president, or he had plausible deniability because he was the president. But, I mean, Ollie North didn't even spend time in jail, and they knew he was fucking involved. So it's all a bunch of horse shit. However, that show, The Invisible Pilot, solid fucking show. HBO put it out. I think you guys probably know by now that I am a huge fan of HBO.
What is HBO? HBO doesn't even exist anymore.
I'm not even a coastal elite, and I like HBO.
It doesn't even exist anymore, though, dude.
Well, it does. It's just not that streaming channel. They changed it from HBO Max to Max, which is horseshit. But whatever. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that. I just wanted to give you one of, or the media show that I could think of where they mentioned Reagan by name, since I was talking about it in the last episode and said, they even talk about Reagan being guilty. So I figure now you guys can go watch it and, you know, gauge for yourself whether or not he actually knew. Here's another one. Did you ever see Primary Colors? You never watched it.
I didn't. It came out during the. I mean, it came out even during the Clinton years. I mean, it was while he was still in office, right?
It was right after the whole scandal with Lewinsky and Jennifer Flowers and all of that. And when you and I were talking about it the other night, I said, you know, they loosely based the character off of Clinton, and I don't think that that's a fair assessment. I think probably what I should have said was they modeled John Travolta's character after a Clinton-esque person. John Travolta had a southern drawl in the movie. They never specifically spoke about an indictment. However, he had knocked up like a 16-year-old girl. It was like the daughter of the people that had known the family since he had been the governor of, I think it was Arkansas. So again, modeled after a Clinton-esque. But either way, it was somewhere in the South. This family ran a barbecue stand, barbecue shack, whatever you want to call it. And he had knocked up the daughter because he was fucking around on his wife. Kathy Bates played a fixer, and she flipped her shit because she had believed so wholeheartedly in this man, everything that he stood for. And she said, I've been fixing your shit for years and years and years, and now you're talking about possibly slinging mud and doing all of this stuff that goes against everything that you stand for. And you knocked up this little girl. So she ended up quitting the campaign, and I think she killed herself, if I remember correctly.
She was nominated for an Academy Award for that role, actually.
It was a great movie. I mean, and he was a man of the people. And I'm not saying that Clinton is or was, but this character in the movie was. Like, he went and ended up, I think, at what's that fucked up donut stand where, like, when they opened a location in Denver, there was like a fucking line.
Krispy Kreme?
Yeah. Okay, so shitty Krispy Kreme donuts. He went to a Krispy Kreme at like 2 a.m, and he just sat there talking to the guy, about his problems and everything else, because I think he genuinely cared about the people, or at least that person. So, it was a pretty good movie.
I think you're off. I think it was because he genuinely cared about Krispy Kreme.
I think that was a large part of it. But he also, couldn't sleep because of all of the pressure, probably from knocking up a little girl.
Oh, so you're saying that maybe he liked creamy crisps better. Okay.
So, yeah, again, indictments were never spoken of, but I'm guessing, again, with these guys, unless they've got a bunch of girls chained up in the basement, they're probably not going to be prosecuted. I think even if they would have found out, like, he may not have been elected president, but I don't think that they would have sent him to jail for statutory rape or anything like that.
But you're making a point about the film itself. It's trying to paint a current political picture, but it's also sort of like trying to illuminate that there are people that get invested in political acts and political actors in good faith, and they have sort of like an emotional, and it's like that sort of like nostalgic attachment to democracy or the history of the United States, that kind of stupid shit from what's the Nicolas Cage movie, National Treasure, and that was what Kathy Bates' character embodied. So I mean, is that some of what the movie was about? Or I mean, because it clearly looks like she was a central character.
She was.
And but she killed herself, but he ended up just getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. Or it looked like
I don't know that he kept getting dirtier and dirtier, but like Billy Bob Thornton was trying to convince him to, do the slinging mud thing. And
was Billy Bob Thornton like Jim Carville or something like that? Or there's not literal connectors. It's just Clinton himself. There's a comment that I read in one of the reviews of it that said that they believe John Travolta did the best Clinton impression that they'd ever seen. And they didn't even say that it's not, I mean, because he's not, even in the name of his character is 1, 2, 3, 4, Governor Jack Stanton. Like you said, it's the governor at that point. So they're trying to draw some parallels without putting themselves in a position where they're going to get sued for libel or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what anybody's motivation was behind the thing, but you definitely, when you're watching it, think that could be Bill Clinton. And the wife, I can't even remember who played the wife. She definitely could have been Hillary.
You want to hear something funny that I just read? A little piece of trivia. Then President Bill Clinton enjoyed this movie so much that he invited John Travolta to a party on one condition: he must come as Governor Jack Stanton. Travolta did not do this. He declined. He wanted to have a screening of it with Travolta in character. That's kind of a narcissistic.
It's a weird fucking request.
Yeah. Especially if he ended up inviting Monica Lewinsky or Jennifer Flowers to it or something like that. That might have been a little too much. But that's at least a good one where he gets in. Does he gets indicted in the film or not?
No, they never ever spoke about indictments or anything else. It was just the worry about losing the election. That's why they were worried about it coming out that the girl was pregnant. A lot of the movie was just about the supporting cast within a presidential race. Like, you know, the press secretary, the fixer, Kathy Bates, the campaign manager, and their relationships, and like how fed up they get with kind of the things that I talk about, where, you know, you give a great stump speech, but you have no fucking idea how you're going to do any of that stuff. The people that are telling you to say this, and then, you know, several people within your staff are saying you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't do that. So there's some infighting and that kind of stuff. So it's a good movie.
Okay.
It's an okay movie.
Bill Clinton liked it.
It was an entertaining movie for sure. What's her name? Maura Tierney from News Radio was in it.
Emma Thompson's in it. She's a great actress.
She was the one that was the wife.
Okay. Well, yeah, she's too good looking to be compared to Hillary Clinton. Not that Emma Thompson's really hot, but I just think that at that point in time, they should have gone more. Well, how did you put it during the last episode? Someone that might take a dive onto Janet Reno, something to that effect. I can't remember exactly what the phrasing was.
I can't remember what I said.
I just could never see Emma Thompson going. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just not on a Janet Reno anyway.
Yeah, but you said that about Hillary. That you couldn't see Hillary going down on Janet.
Because she's like a D-, you know.
Fat girls need love too.
Yeah, was Janet Reno fat?
She was pretty big. She was maybe not fat. Maybe she was big boned.
She was big boned.
She was big, not boned.
She had bone girth. Very girthy bones. So I didn't take it as literally like the movies and stuff. Like I went in a bunch of different directions, but that's because that's what but the first one that of course I went and watched, just because I always love revisiting it, is JFK.
Back and to the left.
Yeah, back. Yeah, and if you haven't seen that Seinfeld episode about what was the
Magic Loogie?
Yeah, well, it's the Magic Loogie, but who's the guy that played for the Mets that they were talking? Keith Hernandez. It was Keith Hernandez. Yeah. Keith Hernandez. But either way, it was. I thought about it, at least in some instances. as indictments in political environments, and also sort of like looking at the weird sort of ways in which these actors in political spaces right now, whether it be Donald Trump or the son of Joe, the living son of Joe. Both, obviously, we're not talking about Bo, but where there is this very peculiar extra-legal environment. So, but JFK is obviously after he dies. I mean, the film, obviously you don't need a complete recap of that space, but they charge Bertrand. Well, Clay Shaw, he goes by the alias Clay Bertrand, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But after, like, my favorite scene in the whole movie, like, well, there are two scenes that I like a ton. One is the scenes that clip together where Donald Sutherland's talking to Jim Garrison, i.e. Kevin Costner, about the what was going on in the background that a person who was very highly ranked inside of the CIA was seeing in that moment, and how whether or not Garrison understood the breadth or depth of what it was that he was getting involved in. I mean, on some level, obviously the images that Oliver Stone was bringing up suggested that to some degree he was at least kind of aware. I actually did some research on Garrison briefly, and he was a total whack job. I mean, he was like a conspiracy theorist to the nth degree. Like, and one of the guys that he put on the stand, literally like undermined his whole position. He never should have put this person on the stand. It had to do with the fact that they were trying to do hypnosis on this guy. There was a suggestion that they were trying to do some like Manchurian Candidate stuff to get him to say certain things while he was on the stand. But back to the film and the portrayal of the concepts themselves. When he goes over that discussion, I love all the lines that Donald Sutherland puts together. But in relation to the indictment, they're sort of like at the end of it, and Sutherland says something to him about needing to go forward with the case, and Garrison admits in that moment, he says, we don't really have much of a case. And Donald Sutherland goes on and makes a huge point in this space. And I think this is true maybe to a much greater extent at the end of the 60s and early part of the 70s, where Sutherland's character, Mr. X, says, whether you have a case or not, you have to take this to court now. You have to get some sort of light on it, because that's the only way that you can get an amount of momentum to where if you can get one person cornered, you create the possibility of this person blowing the lid on that, this one blowing on that, and then he says, then you have like a set of dominoes, everything sort of like falling into place. And of course, like Mr. X, Sutherland's character, knew in that moment that what he was hoping for, that's the best case scenario. But the most important thing is that Garrison, by taking it and charging Bertrand with the crime of aiding and abetting in the conspiracy, it would at least allow for because they knew everybody in the United States was going to look at what was happening in that trial, and that was not in a place where you could just click on fucking YouTube or any number of different online media sources. You had to watch the trial the way it was presented. You had to watch the nightly news in the way that it was presented. You had to pick up the newspaper the next day and read the newspaper, and everybody was focusing on that, which is so much different than what it is that goes on today with regards to. I mean, we live in they say 24-hour media cycle. I don't even know. Like it's like a time transcendent media cycle where, like, when I see all this stuff coming up on MSNBC, I bet you diamonds to dollars that the cost for advertising over the course of since the indictment started to come through, the cost for advertising on MSNBC has probably gone up a fair amount, because people are starting to watch, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. I mean, I don't want to just put MSNBC in that box, but what was going on during that JFK trial was not the same thing as what we're seeing in real life right now, but it did give you kind of like a good Kodak moment of how to begin to think about going after people in a political way in the public's eye through formal indictments.
Yeah, but I mean, Mr. X, they never really said who he was specifically, but he was like a colonel or some shit in the army, right?
That's what it seemed to suggest. Colonel, I think Colonel is right. I think
Colonel, and it was like Army intelligence or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But what they never say is that, like, they only give you so much, so you can pull and the investigators start to get excited because now this little lead led to this larger lead, and then just all of a sudden you hit a dead end, and so you gotta fucking go somewhere else, and you start pulling again, and so you end up with all of these fucking dead ends, and some of them were literal dead ends. I mean, like, where the assassin turned up dead, or the guy mafia guy ended up dead.
The guy at the train station who made a statement. They killed him. The lady who said that she could make the link between Oswald and Ruby. That she was like.
She got beat up though, right?
She got beat up the first time, but when the trial started to go into play, they killed her too.
Okay. So. I was watching. This doesn't have anything to do with a presidential indictment, but it kind of has to do with JFK. So I watched that movie Shooter again the other night.
Yeah, that's
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
The scene where he talks to that guy's the Tennessee guy. It's one of my favorite scenes ever.
It's just awesome, dude. When he's like, those guys in the grassy knoll are buried out in Terralingua, and he goes, "Well, how do you know that?" And he goes, "Because I still got the shovel."
I love that fucking line. It's one of my favorite. Like, it's one of those ones where you're like in the middle of a movie and all these things are happening, and then this guy just says something that you never expect anybody to ever see. It's like a total fucking smash right in the melon.
Right. But JFK, I mean, it was a great movie. It was long as shit, and I think that's one of the reasons I appreciate DVDs now, because, like, I remember being in the theater thinking, God damn, I gotta take a piss. But I don't want to, like, miss anything.
I didn't move, yeah, and I saw that in the theater.
Yeah. I think all of us went. Weren't you with me and Aaron and Karina, and I think your dipshit brother was there? The older one, not the younger one.
Yeah, my little brother didn't really hang out with us. In 91? I don't know. But you said an important thing. You said that they have all these hanging strings, right? And that they don't tie them up. Well, Oliver Stone made this revisit to the JFK, and he did it as a documentary last year or the year before that. I still haven't watched it. I need to watch it as much as I get into this shit. But when he wrote it, when they originally wrote the screenplay and did the film, he read like every conspiracy theory and all these, and he tried to sort of like put all of those different things in play and never complete the space. I mean, there's no doubt that he acknowledges a bias, whether he would admit it or not, towards being critical of the military-industrial complex. You don't start a fucking film off with the Eisenhower, his exit speech, where he used the first reference at what everybody knows, that was the first time military-industrial complex was ever said. But they did all these other things though to show you what was really happening in that environment. And I had just watched it. When I watched it again this time, there was one thing that I had keyed in a little bit on before, but I had never really looked at closely enough. But Michael Rooker, the guy that was in The Walking Dead, who plays Bill Broussard in the film, one of the people who's working inside of the Louisiana District Attorney's office.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that I really am impressed, like if you go back and watch it, they were using Broussard's character as a way of trying to illustrate the ways in which FBI informants would be set inside of a specific environment and do certain things to cause disruption, to get people to go against each other, to get people to doubt themselves when getting close to certain things that they don't want to get him close to. And I'd seen him doing these things, but I didn't realize to what extent. Like in the last scene where he goes, and it's after he does some sort of a media event with John Larroquette. John Larroquette does the interview on TV. I can't remember what it was for, like a Tonight Show kind of thing. And he's talking about all these things. He shows the pictures of the bums that they took down to that really look like mafia hit guys, you know. But somebody in Larroquette's ear says, "You can't show us on TV." He says, "What do you mean I can't? It's part of my case. I can do whatever I want." And he says, "No, we're going to a commercial, right?" So, like in the back of Costner's character's mind is how much he is pissed off the federal government at this point. And he's at the airport, and Broussard had left the meeting pissed off a couple of days before that, and Costner's character doubles down on the fact that I don't want us fighting with each other. I'm gonna bring Broussard back as soon as he comes back. And one of the bigger fella, and I can't remember what his name is, but he says, "I can't work with him anymore. He's causing disruption in here. He looks like a fucking FBI plant to me in everything that he does." And Costner naively says, I don't give a fuck. He's gonna be a part of our getting the case together. And while he's in the airport in that moment, Broussard shows up out of nowhere and says, I came here because I heard from one of my contacts inside the FBI that somebody's going to try to put a hit on you tonight. And Costner yells at him. He says, "I told you I don't want to hear about any of that shit ever." And when he walks out, he sees all these different police officers, and he can tell, like, he's hyper under surveillance in that moment. And the reality of the situation comes to his head to where he's like, you know, and then he goes home. Bobby Kennedy gets shot right after that. And then he says to Sissy Spacek, his wife, he says, "I'm really fucking scared now." Because I up until that, the Broussard thing in the airport with all those people just following everything that he did, and then realizing that they were not going to let Bobby do anything any more than they were going to let John, whatever that was. That I think the way that Stone did that in that film was fucking sharper than I've seen in other films that have tried to deal with stuff like infighting and, you know, plants. And look at Malcolm X. They could have done better. Spike Lee could have done better with it in that film. The Judas and the one about Fred Hampton. Like they sort of touch on some things, but like if you want to understand how when you're going up against the systems of power, how intelligence agencies are going to act in relation to you is an important question that you have to go into, think about, meditate on.
Well, again, I don't think they're ever going to purposely show you that stuff over and over again, because they want the intelligence community, whether that be, you know, the FBI or the CIA,
contract positions, whatever.
It's supposed to be this shining hero image. You guys are, you know, there's a fucking, the stars and stripes are waving behind their head as they look off into the sunset, and you know everything is going to be all right. So if they show some shit where they're infiltrating just normal law-abiding citizens. I'm not talking about the fucking guys that did the Boston bombing, or even that fucking stupid skinhead that did the shooting down in Phoenix in, what was it, 2013 or some shit?
I don't even remember which one you're talking. That's a tragedy.
But, I mean, they're not going to show them infiltrating a law-abiding organization, person's family, whatever, because then people may start to think, okay, there could be, you know, an invasion of privacy here. Maybe there's some fucking constitutional issues with what our government is doing. And those issues are here now.
Yeah, legitimate, real, yeah.
But
clear and present.
They don't want to portray that.
Well, I think in 91, I think that you were able to get away with it a little bit better back then. I think that now, when you look at it, there was in Robinson's book, the global. I can't remember it's the.
That's the one that you were reading from when we did the prison episode, right?
Yeah. The war. It's about the war, like the fact that contradictions in capitalism lead to utilizing the military-industrial complex as a way of making money. Like it's one of those you use that as a way of creating value. But in that book, he talked a ton, like all these different, like the new Top Gun movie, like anything, and then like the new Top Gun movie, you would expect consultation with regards to military and possibly intelligence, but something as simple as like the new Barbie movie, but everything that goes now, as much as we talk shit about China and us changing our movies so that we can make sure to penetrate the Chinese market, like there is an open door communication between the film industry, the TV industry, the streaming industries, and these various different mechanisms of intelligence of power. Like I think that you could, like I said, I think you could get away with it easier in 91. I don't think you get away with it perfectly, but I think that if you tried to do and say what he was saying in 91 in a movie made in 2023,
wouldn't happen.
Yeah, you'd get a lot of pushback. I think it would be very difficult. You'd have to do it through an independent financiers. You might have to do it in a different jurisdiction. You know.
Well, Oliver Stone's got plenty of money. He can self-finance his own movies now, or at least get it up off the ground.
Well, the nuclear one that we talked about before that he just did, he had to self-finance that whole thing because nobody would go in on it with him. So fucked up.
You said something about time and the news cycle, which, again, these presidential media things were difficult to find. But I wanted to talk about this because, one, it's one of my favorite shows ever, at least season 1. But 2, it illustrates government corruption, at least at the state level, and how no indictments ever really came around.
Because this is not just about when they do; it's about when they don't,
right?
Too, yeah.
So, True Detective season 1,
so fucking awesome.
And the reason Time reminded me about it, if you guys haven't seen it, is because they keep referencing time and things repeating itself, and time is a flat circle.
Time's a flat circle.
I'm gonna see you again soon, or this is gonna happen over and over again.
And we're really hoping that the 4th season, which is coming out soon, and it appears that they might have a tattoo or was it a tattoo?
It was graffiti.
Graffiti, yeah.
I think it was like blood.
Looks like the time is a flat circle thing again. We're hoping for a little bit. We're hoping Jodie Foster's is crazy as Rustin Cole.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. But that's my hope, my dream, my wish.
Sorry, anyway,
no, it's fine. So I think it was, I don't know, like episode 3 or 4. It was fairly early. This guy Tuttle comes in, Reverend Tuttle comes into the police station, and he's like, people are taking care and they're locking their doors and everything else. And he's trying to, really what he's trying to do is gauge how much the cops know. But he's also trying to steer things in a certain direction. He's saying, they're coming up with a Christianity hate, that these crimes are based on people hating Christians, and devil worship.
Yeah,
and
this is when he brought those other 2 guys in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it turns out because Matthew McConaughey's character didn't know who Reverend Tuttle was, and he was pissed off, and he's cussing, and all the cops say, "What? Are you a fucking retard? What's the deal? Don't you know who that was?" And he goes, "No, who the fuck is he?" And it turns out that Reverend Tuttle was a cousin of the governor, who was also a Tuttle. And so they were steering the Louisiana State Police from, the highest levels of state government all the way down. And these guys, this group of fucking, I don't know, that they remind me of not what they were doing to girls, but the masks and shit they were wearing reminded me of old school Mardi Gras, like true fucking Cajun type shit. Not the beads and tits and, purple and yellow LSU, go, 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 but like... I
gotta tell you, I talked to Jarrett earlier today. I think if he heard you say that, I think that he might pistol whip you for talking shit about his cousins.
Dude, have you been to Louisiana? Yeah,
I have, but I haven't had anybody talk like that. The guy on the Cajun cooking show.
Dude, anywhere outside of fucking like New Orleans or Shreveport, they all talk like that. Well,
I think that's a very hateful comment.
It's not hateful. I really appreciate it. I think that, dude, I loved Louisiana. I mean, it's fucking hot and humid.
They make good food, though, dude.
It depends on how fucking adventurous you are. But yeah, I'm a food guy.
I just want a crawfish boil.
Crawfish étouffée. It's one of my favorites. I even like fucking gator tail, dude. Frog's legs, not a huge fan of.
Can be a lot of meat in frog's legs.
They say it tastes like chicken. I didn't think it tasted like chicken, but whatever.
So you were talking about...
Yeah, so True Detective, these guys are basically taking... It seemed like the majority of them were girls, but some of them were also boys, but they're molesting these kids at younger ages. They're raping and killing girls at older ages, which is how, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey get involved in this whole thing. So they solved the case, or so it seems. But then, what is it, 20 years later? No, not 20 years. 10 years later?
Yeah, about 10. I think it was about 10.
10 years later, it swings back around, and they figure out that, because of all of these fucking hurricanes, that they've been doing it up and down the coast forever. And they did finally figure out that, the governor was involved and Reverend Tuttle. And Reverend Tuttle had all of these schools that were all over the coast that were being paid for by the state because they were basically using like a voucher system.
Yeah, there were grants that were given to the state so that they could create these religious elementary schools.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, nobody was ever indicted.
Well, another point that they make about the difficulty in trying to bring justice against people who are in sitting positions of power. When that guy became the one that knew about the baseball player's daughter.
Yeah, the only one that can arrest a sheriff
is the governor. Which
right.
Which means that there's no indictability from a regular person. Which means that a sheriff of a parish or a city or whatever the fuck you want to call it can eventually function above the law but if they're in cahoots with the governor, you basically your position would be so precarious you'd need somebody federal to come in to do anything at that point in time.
Right, which a lot of times, again, to make a splash on the front page, whatever, the Department of Justice will go in and say, okay, were your civil rights violated? Are these cops doing anything wrong? Is this prison doing anything wrong?
Did they go across state lines? Who are you talking about? Fashili?
Manili. The Department of Justice
Yeah.
and the Attorney General.
Because if somebody goes across state lines, then it widens the.
No, they have the authority to do it basically anywhere. Now, a lot of states or cities would fight and say you can't do that because we're working under our state constitution. But the Attorney General and the Department of Justice has gone into different local or state, call them precincts, jurisdictions.
I understand that, but when you move across, it makes it easier for federal actors to charge certain spaces.
Yeah, but if you're a dirty cop and you're doing something wrong, if you're violating someone's civil rights or whatever, you're not going to go across the state line. I'm just saying, but yes, they
that is a possibility. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Sorry, you threw me off.
Sorry, little buddy. I didn't mean to mess with your line of thought.
Whatever, Dick. You do it all the time. So
whatever, Mr. X.
I don't recommend seasons 2 or 3 of True Detective.
I heard 3 was okay. I haven't watched it yet. Yeah,
it's all right.
I like the main character. I like him as an actor. I've seen him in a few things that I thought were pretty good.
It's definitely not as good as 1, and
dude, 1 is like comparing it to 1 is like it's a fucking holy grail, dude.
The corruption piece is really big in season 2, but it wasn't the same, and it was more corrupt cops, not an entire state.
So since you had Vince Vaughn and Rachel McAdams in it, was it just like Wedding Crashers Part 2 or something?
Yeah, except with Colin Farrell.
He's the new Owen Wilson.
But season 4, I think, is going to be good, and it's in
dark.
Alaska.
It
literally.
Yes, it is. It's night, all night. But it looks freaky. Like when I actually watched the trailer like 4 or 5 times. And I think I was more scared the 5th time than I was the first.
It's kind of creepy.
It is.
It is. But it's, again, coming out soon. So catch up on at least season 1, because season 4 might be, they might actually be circling back to that. Like everybody in Louisiana moved up to Alaska.
And to be clear, Cole and what's Woody Harrelson's?
Hauser?
No. What the fuck is his last name? Damn it. Marty what? It's not Hauser. No matter what, Marty and Rustin is maybe the best fucking player or character development in. It's one of my favorite character developments in anything that I've ever watched.
The dialogue is fucking rad.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of talks about, like, I guess you could think of a governor as a president, just of a much smaller country.
Well, Louisiana would be like an average sized country, like it'd be like Germany, right, or something like that. It might be like a larger shoe than the boot of Italy, but.
What else do you have on your list?
He's trying to change the subject because he thinks that I'm saying some stupid shit right now. One that I always like is Amistad, and that one again. It's because of like weird legal constructs and jurisdictional problems. Like at the beginning of the movie, I remember. So like one thing that I think is always interesting. Amistad obviously it's about. The slave trade. It's about a group of Africans who are brought over, and it become illegal in the United States to bring slaves from Africa. They had to either come from the West Indies or they had to come from the United States proper. You were not allowed to bring them. So like the space where the clear moral dilemma, the quagmire starts to come to the surface. So the first step that they take, or one of the early steps that they take, rather, I don't want to say first because I don't know anything about legal construction in the 1840s or 1850s in relation to slaves in the United States. But it was clear that like we were foreclosing on the space where you could get slaves from. So what would happen is they would bring the slaves over. they'd dock them in, say, Havana or something like that. They would give them Spanish surnames and Spanish names and say that they were bred on plantations down in Cuba, and they would create the lists for a ship, a manifest, like a ship manifest that identified them as property coming from Havana to the United States. While the Amistad is coming here, after they have gone through Havana, they have an insurrection. They revolt. They kill all but 2 of their captors because they don't know how to sail a boat like that, or a big ass sailed boat. Through
row, bitches, row.
Through some tricky chicanery, they end up taking it to the United States anyway. They get taken into possession by some actors in the United States government. They try to take salvage rights over them. The Spanish people that own the Amistad try to say that they have a right to them. There's all kinds of bullshit about who it is that has a right to them. But the big question at the bottom of what it is that's happening is, did they really come from Havana, or did they come from Africa? So there are all these discussions that go on where there's a judge that's in it, and he's going to rule on behalf of them being Africans. They move him out, and they put a younger Catholic judge in who is concerned about people finding out that he's Catholic, because it's a very Protestant nation at this time. Catholics are looked down on, just a lot like Irish were looked down on during that sort of time period.
Still to this day, I'm not sure Catholicism is a big hit, but that's irrelevant right now.
You're a hell of a guy, Brian. I don't care what I say about you all the time. So, but again, like at the beginning of the movie, though, there's this really funny conversation that goes on between Matthew. So we got Matthew McConaughey again. Matthew McConaughey is one of the great courtroom guys. He did A Time to Kill. He was great in that as a lawyer. And of course, in this one, where he's dressed up like a goofy old white guy from fucking the 1850s,
powdered wig and all.
Yeah, he's sitting there. He's talking. So Morgan Freeman is an abolitionist, and I can't remember the name of the guy. He's the guy who was the math teacher of Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting.
The math teacher.
Yeah, the one who gets so in Good Will Hunting, when he's doing the math on the board while he's
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I don't know his name either.
Yeah, he was also in fucking the Thor movies. I know who I'm talking about, motherfuckers. I'm not gonna go look for it right now, but these 3 people are for the abolition of slavery, and they have the initial hearing, and all of those various different actors who are trying to, the salvage rights, the Spanish guys, the Queen Isabel of Spain is making a claim on the slaves. McConaughey says, we're going to go eat and we're going to talk about it, and there's an argument that the Good Will Hunting guy makes, and he says, we need to fight this war on the grounds of righteousness. It's morally improper to maintain slavery, right? And Matthew McConaughey kind of like laughs at him, because under Martin Van Buren during this time period, you were not going to be able to make a moral argument and persuade John Calhoun to stop owning slaves. You're going to have to do something different to save these particular slaves' lives. You need to show what they are or what they aren't. And what Matthew McConaughey suggests in this moment is, this is a pure property case. Did they come from Africa or did they not? And they say, well, we believe that they did come from Africa. He says, well, this is a property case then. They can't be anybody's property. If they're born in Cuba, all kinds of people are going to have a legal position in relation to who it is that has these individuals. And again, that guy gets into McConaughey's face and says, we need to win this on the grounds of righteousness, like Jesus and all that shit. And McConaughey's like, you're a dumb shit. You need to be practical. Otherwise, these guys are going to get hanged for what it was that they did to these people. And throughout this space, what's his name?
I maybe need to watch that movie again.
It's good, but
Stellan Skarsgård is his name.
Stellan Skarsgård, and then what's I'm brain farting again. Anthony Hopkins plays John Quincy Adams in the film, and they keep trying to petition Morgan Freeman, who is like I said, is an abolitionist. He keeps trying to appeal to John Quincy Adams' good nature, because they know that it's essentially Forsyth, the Secretary of State, and Martin Van Buren that are like pulling the strings from behind the scenes to make sure that these not African, but from, according to their legal argument, that they're from Havana, therefore they're property, and this has to be with an exclamation point made clear, and we're not going to let these guys go, because the moment you start letting them go, you're going to open up the doors to other people thinking that could possibly happen for them as well. And finally, towards the end, when they win in a circuit, then it gets appealed to the Supreme Court, and McConaughey's character has to go back to Cinque, who is the main spokesman for these individuals from Africa. He's part of the Mende tribe. They find somebody who can act as an intermediary between them, and it just happens to be Chiwetel, the guy that died of cancer, that was the Black Panther. He's their translator in the movie. It was a long time ago. It was when he was a kid, right? But they get to the end where Cinque and John
You mean
Quincy
the
Adams,
Marvel Black Panther,
yeah,
not...
Yeah, I mean the Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the Marvel Black Panther. So finally, McConaughey sends him a letter, and he appeals. It's like this thing about Cicero and this and that. The way that this is going to get worked out is between the acts of two men, and he says it's the guy from Africa, Cinque, and it's you, because you're in a position of power to where you can sort of counterbalance what Forsyth and Van Buren are doing on the other side. And finally, he has this diatribe that he gives before the Supreme Court, and it's a total liberal feel-good movie. I mean, it really is. It's kind of obnoxious on a lot of levels, but there's an argument that he makes at the end where he says, maybe we need to ask because he says Cinque, when he gets in trouble, he asks his elders for help. He reaches back into history and, with their spirits, and they do their tribal acts to sort of connect to those. And John Quincy Adams makes a suggestion that we fail to do this in an honest way. We do it in a way where we say, make America great again, but we're going to do whatever it was that the Constitution says based on what it is that we think it was interpreted as in 1776, as opposed to channeling the wisdom and the thought and the ability to be self-critical and to grow and to develop and to change, which is what John Quincy Adams is sort of posing in this moment, which, again, I don't believe in progress in straight lines, but it is appealing to me when a person makes an argument and says, if we look at what their intentions were during that time period, and we understand that the world is not static, that it does change, you tap into their spirit and you fucking grow. You don't have a standoff between one and the other until a gun fires, and then everything goes. Then we're right back in Civil War, Civil War number 2. So, but I do like it. It's the jurisdiction discussions are interesting, and of course they find that
they end up going and blowing up the fort, right? Because okay, that's what I thought.
Because the guys that were the Queen Isabella of Spain, she said there is no fort, and then that British soldier at the end says, send a letter to Queen Elizabeth or Queen Isabella. Yes, there is not a fort, because we just fucking leveled it to the ground.
That part always bothered me, and I know bad shit has happened globally, since the beginning of time, but just the visualization of that, where, and I'm not sure that it would would have made me any happier with sheep, but I mean the way that they were treating these people like they were cattle, and they were all in, you know, these cages, and they were being led up and down ramps and
chained together through multiple.
Just so fucked, dude. I just don't understand where it is in our brains that this human condition where we think, well, fuck it, I can go ahead and make that fucking person do whatever I want them to, and if they don't, I will beat them, I will starve them, and if they still don't, then I will fucking kill them. And then, at least by killing them, it's a warning to all the other motherfuckers so they know that I will beat them, starve them, and kill them.
It's like a Negan moment, kind of.
It's just so fucked, dude.
There was one when because they were trying to paint the picture of how brutal it was on the ship when they were brought over from Africa when they left the island that you're talking about. And they're talking to the British captain, who incidentally is the one that they use at the end that writes the letter. And he's testifying to the court, and he starts talking about an instance where they didn't plan properly for enough food. So say you have 160 Africans on board that are going to be turned into slaves, and you thought that you had enough food, but you realize you only have enough for, say, 110, so you're going to have to get rid of 70 of them, right? So like he makes this comment about how in instances like that they literally just throw them overboard, and a lot of times they'll be chained together and they'll put a giant fucking boulder at the end of it, so when they fucking go down, they all get drowned like instantly. And John Forsyth, who is the acting attorney on behalf of the government, and Isabella, whoever, all those different interests at that point, says, I don't understand. I don't see anywhere. Oh, it wasn't Forsyth. It was this other guy who's just a total prick. Lawyers are pricks anyway. Sorry. I some of you are okay, but 99.99% of you are total fucking pricks. What did Shakespeare say? What's 10,000 lawyers at the bottom of the sea? A good start. That would be ironic in this context, considering the way that I'm telling the story. But having said that, he says this is hardly a lucrative business. I don't see anything that says that they threw 70 slaves overboard. And he says, so tell me where you see it. He says, I see it in the poundage. And he's like, that doesn't mean that it's the slaves that are going overboard. Perhaps I need a quill and parchment and a little bit more imagination to believe whatever that poundage is. And he says, well, what do you suppose it was? You think they threw over a couple of masts and sails? I mean, it's an unreasonable act, but for people that are totally insane and that trying to make money out of everything and everybody, it is a reasonable act for those people. And it is like, I've heard stories about people that have gone back, because the slave fortress is still there, like the remnants of it, and people go there and they fucking go through it. Like I can't even imagine, like, you think the ghosts of Mississippi are bad, like that is a place that I don't know, if you could hear the walls talk, you'd probably want to fucking stab yourself in the fucking temple, because the residual vibrations from the nightmares that went on in that place would be deafening, I would think.
It would have to be, I mean, for all of those people, and I'm not just talking about, slaves, but like Native Americans, when we kidnapped them and took them to boarding schools, or made them slaves in boarding schools, because we did that combination. Well, you can't be a savage and a slave, so we're going to educate you and make you work in the
after
field.
We systematically eliminated the rest of their tribe.
But just imagine, like, because they were having that hard time in Amistad too, where these guys are sitting there and they don't fucking understand what anybody else is saying. So all of these people are talking about them and they have no fucking idea what they're saying or anything else. So that would be fucking scary in the courtroom, but it would especially be scary if you're in some fucking dark, dank hole, chained up, and you've seen all your friends leave and never come back, and you hear all these fucking white people either speaking Spanish or fucking French or Portuguese or whatever it was
that you don't understand, no matter which one it is. Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. Like I don't know. It's not. Yeah, I always like, but I mean, and it was. I'm sure that like they were over romanticizing John Quincy Adams, and it was clearly another like white savior movie, But I like looking at like if you like changing law positions, because it is one of those things that like laws, as much bullshit as they are, they're sort of like a rubber stamp about the way that we think about concepts like justice in a concrete way, and that was clearly a moment where we had quite a bit more. I wish there was some more John Brown revolt kind of things, sometimes.
I think that was a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as far as your movie,
or Nat Turner.
or a movie. You said you wish there were some more John Brown moments. God, I wish I could remember the name of that show. I think it was a show on Showtime, and what's it called? The Free State? Yeah. But it was about the abolitionists.
It was a movie about John Brown.
I thought was it just a movie? I thought there was a fucking series on Showtime.
Well, there was one where, again, Matthew McConaughey played the John Brown character, and they fucking went out and revolted, man. Let's see. What'd you say? The Free State?
Yeah, I thought that's what. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, again, I said it several episodes ago, where sometimes if the bully just keeps bullying you can't really talk to him, especially if you don't speak the fucking language. But the bully keeps bullying. At some point, in order to get them to stop, you just got to break their fucking nose. And I think that, that's what the guys on Amistad did, or in the Amistad movie, depending on your outlook. And
I think it's just a movie. It's called Free State of Jones.
Okay.
And again, it's Matthew McConaughey, and I haven't seen it. Sometimes I get like the Hollywood side of these things kind of gets under my skin. So.
All right, so here's one. Doesn't have anything to do with slavery, but
we can make a segue.
And technically, this one, the president was never indicted either, but it does go to show corruption from the highest office in the country. So it's called Absolute Power. It's Clint Eastwood movie.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Gene Hackman, Scott Glenn, and
it was loaded, huh?
What's her name? Shit. Anyway, so Clint Eastwood.
Laura Linney.
Laura Linney is the daughter of Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood is a burglar, and he goes to rob this super duper fucking waspy elite rich dude while he's supposed to be in the Bahamas.
Oh, good on him.
Turns out that his young trophy wife she didn't take the trip to the Bahamas, so she's still at home.
Oops.
Well, while Clint Eastwood is in the safe, which is this huge fucking room, he's clearing everything out. the girl comes in and she's fucking around with some guy. And the guy starts to play a little rough. She says no, and he keeps going. She cuts him with a letter opener, and he flips out, punches her, or backhands her or something, and then maybe that's when she cuts him. But either way, he screams, and then two guys with guns come in and fucking shoot her. Well, it turns out he's the president of the United States. So he was fucking the wife of that super rich guy, and the super rich guy, it turned out, was the one that got him elected to all of these different political positions throughout his career. The reason Clint Eastwood could see all of this while he was in the safe was because the super rich guy was also super old and a cuckold. So he would sit in the closet and watch his wife bang other guys, but not the president. He had no idea that she was banging the president. That's why she waited till he was in the Bahamas to do that.
So she knew that this was a thing that they had communicated.
Well, he knew that she fucked other guys because he would watch.
So she didn't know she was putting on a show most of the time, ever.
You lost me. What the fuck are you talking about?
There are instances where
both
partners know.
The two married people had an agreement.
Yeah.
Where he would watch, she would fuck.
Okay.
Just not the president.
Okay.
Which was Gene Hackman.
So she knew she was putting on a show.
Yeah. That's the cuckold part.
Carry on. Yeah, I get it, motherfucker. You can be a cuckold without. You can be an
unwitting.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. It doesn't have to be. I mean, we can get into these definitions, and if anybody wants to comment on whether or not that actually qualifies for cuckolding, you can text us or email us, and we would be happy to hear from you.
So Clint Eastwood is gonna fucking bolt because he figures out who it is, and the fucking Secret Service chased him out of the property, and so he goes and he's getting fake papers and everything else, and then he figures out, fuck this guy, he's a coward, I'm not going to bolt. And he starts fucking with the president, and he sends him a letter and pictures, but the president never sees him. The chief of staff takes him, and she's ordering the fucking Secret Service to find this guy. It's a good movie. The really funny part is that the super rich guy gets back from the Bahamas. He's all upset, so he puts a hit out on Clint Eastwood.
What?
Clint Eastwood finally ends up talking to the guy and saying, look, I put all your shit back. I didn't steal anything. I want this guy to pay.
It wasn't me. It was the president, little buddy.
And he goes, you know who it was. When you close your eyes at night, you know who it was. And he looks over, and there's a picture of the White House. So since that super powerful rich guy had gotten him elected and all of that stuff, he could go through without anybody even blinking. Like, you know, he'd just walk in and say, is he in? Yeah, go ahead and go on in. Mm-hmm. So the old guy ended up fucking beating him with his cane at the end of the movie and killing the president. Yeah. So there was some justice there. I think that it's kind of funny to think that, one, the president was getting away with murder, except a burglar stopped him. And then, two, the super rich guy is probably going to get away with murder because of the fact that he was super rich and got him the job to begin with. So I talked about that movie just because of the elitist thing.
Why a cane?
I don't know, because he was fucking old and he had to walk with a cane.
I like the whole idea of it, but
not the cane.
He should have had like one of them stupid British, like 007. I got a cane with the gun inside of it, and
well, he had the money and the resources. He could have just fucking assassinated them.
and a silencer.
Or the
And then he could say something stupid like after he hold up the cane to shoot him, I'm raising Cain, something bad. That would have been better than beating him to death with a cane.
Well, they didn't show the beating. Not that makes a difference. But anyway.
I think I need to go roll a cigarette. Would you like to go and have a piece of tobacco?
Yeah, I would definitely like to smoke and go outside. So we are at an hour and 15 minutes. We've got another half coming up soon because I've got a whole bunch more shit I need to talk about, and I think you got a couple on your list,
I
right?
definitely have to talk about that nasty propaganda movie that I watched earlier today. That just makes me laugh. There's some things that happen in it that just like sometimes like in my mind I'm like, who the fuck thinks of this shit? How they construct knowledge and what becomes real, and just the whole fantasy of and delusion of like maybe what our political environment like really engenders right now. Like people want to be like Trump because Trump has a power that they're never going to have, but they can have some sort of cathartic, or maybe vice versa. But we'll get into that in the second half.
shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
720-334-ROLL.
All right, we will talk to you soon.
Roll, bitches.